everybody, welcome to another episode of Overdrive. I'm Sohini Das. Now the BMW 3 Series is back. In fact, the outgoing model was getting a bit too old for the market and the competition has been heating up the market space. And so BMW decided to launch the 3 Series with a bang. Here's the first drive report.
This is finally a BMW that looks new, fresh and unriddled by the need to follow the design direction set by other BMWs. Well, almost. It is also the most angry 3 Series that we have ever seen. Compared to the outgoing car, the kidney grille is larger as expected and is now a single-piece unit. The aggression of the front end is defined by the 4 frowning lines on the bonnet which converge into this grille. The shape of the headlights is sharper and is defined by the aggressive detailing. The bumpers are quite busy too, with the large air dams and the rising cheekbones defined by the vertical creases that intrude into the headlights to create a notch. The treatment of the face is in line with the 3.0 CSL homage concept from 2015, but some of the details draw inspiration further back on the BMW timeline. That little notch in the headlamp is inspired by the E46 BMW. It's one of my most favorite iterations of the 3 Series, and therefore I'm going to pick sides. The E46, I believe, is the most elegant representation of the 3 Series. This one, not as elegant in comparison, especially that face. It looks overdone to me, and I think it is one of the biggest reasons why this design will polarize the onlookers. Like the face, the tail is also the busiest that we've seen ever on a 3 Series, and that is also partly because this is the M Sport trim. So the M Sport variant gets you those M badges, it gets you the M wheels. You don't have a very distinctive design for the brake calipers, but you do get a lot less bling. All the chrome is replaced with black finish, and I think it looks really nice, especially here. Even on the Hofmeister King, it looks nice. Look at this car from a distance and you will see the typical low slung stance and the long nose short boot profile that's typical to a 3 Series. Look at it from close quarters, however, and you realize that the 3 Series has grown much larger than before. 76mm longer, 16mm wider and 1mm taller than before. And to maintain its low overhangs and dynamic abilities, the wheels have yet again been pushed to the far corners of the car and see a 41mm increase in wheelbase and a wider track width too. The rear seat space for a 3 Series is actually quite good. You may not necessarily want a 3 GT, and even if you want one, unfortunately with this generation, there is no 3 GT, at least as of now. They axed it in the previous generation. Legroom, really good. Headroom for my height of 5'8", quite nice for a taller person, may not be so much. It's not a very airy feeling cabin, but for a 3 Series it's actually quite spacious. Unfortunately, you don't get a panoramic sunroof, and that's a bit of a worry because a panoramic sunroof in this generation of the car would have actually made a lot of sense. But then again, this is a driver's car. That is the more important seat in this particular car, and that is why all the goodies are concentrating right there. It's magical how the cabin instantly wraps around you the moment you get into the driver's seat, giving you a clear view of the road ahead and yet making you feel like you're a part of the drivetrain and not sitting atop it. I like my BMW cabins to be quite functional and simple, and that is why I really like this design. It is actually the bare basic of what you can get with a BMW with all the features in there. So you don't get a heads-up display right now, but you do get a nice infotainment. It's not the biggest in its class, it's not the biggest that BMW is offering either, but it's nicely in line with the digital instrumentation. I've already said this, I do not like the layout of this instrumentation all that much. It is not as customizable as the Audi virtual cockpit. The information is easy to read, but it's just not to my taste. I think it's just too much happening there. The only little grudge that I have is I do not like these inlays. They're nice materials, but this particular design, it feels like it's just a printed vinyl, and I don't like it. I would have probably gone with something like a carbon fiber finish or maybe even a wood finish. The infotainment has gesture controls, a multitude of input choices, wireless Apple CarPlay and a digital assistant that answers to Hey BMW or any other name that you choose to give it. You can also create user profiles to customize certain preferences, so most of the current generation technology is all covered. There are also some cool features like the reversing assist, which is a part of the park assist, which in scenarios like a parking spot or a tight maneuver remembers the path that you've taken and can automatically reverse along the same path again if you're unsure on how to maneuver. Cool feature that. But let us talk instead about how the new 3 Series drives when you are in control. This car is quick to get off the mark, and that is when you understand that that outrageous design, that over-the-top design actually goes quite well with the intent of this car. And that design starts growing on you, even if it's polarized, even if you've not liked it at first, it starts growing on you, especially after you drive this car. And that's a big thing to say, a performance having a say on how the design should be. And I'm not talking about science, I'm not talking about aerodynamics. The aerodynamics, however, are really good. In fact, the aerodynamics of this car are better than some of the sports cars from not so long ago. Dropping its drag coefficient from 0.26 in the previous model to 0.23 on the car that you see here, the new 3 Series is actually more aerodynamic than BMW's flagship sports cars like the i8 and the 8 Series Coupe, and that is a big deal. Underneath the sculpted bodywork of the new 3 Series is the cluster architecture, derived from the 8, 7, 6 and 5 Series, which makes this car quite light despite the increment in size and equipment. That architecture is also responsible for the improved handling manners of this car. The new suspension in the 3 Series uses extra hydraulic damping in the front axle and a compression limiting system at the rear, which BMW says allows damping that is continuously variable and yet very progressive. And I think it works. In fact, it reminds me of the era when adaptive dampers weren't a thing, when the dynamics felt natural, unassisted and not artificial. The new 3 Series feels exactly like that, and that is good news. Track junkies, however, will miss the option of the M Advantage, like the adaptive sport suspension, the lightweight brakes, the sport differential, and of course the variable ratio steering wheel. All this equipment will make a lot of difference on the track, but on the road, even in their absence, the 3 Series is an absolute hoot to drive. Tail happy when you want it to, precise if you want it to, just how a 3 Series sedan should be. The sound of this engine is actually quite nice. Of course, it doesn't have the oral drama of a 6-cylinder or a V engine, but then again, if the sound of a 4-cylinder motorcycle can put a smile on our face, why can't this one? It certainly does. It's certainly nice enough to make you go harder, make you push the car harder. And if the sound doesn't do it for you, the dynamics of this car certainly will. This is the B48 2-liter engine that puts out 258 horses and 400 Newton meters that propel this car from a standstill to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.8 seconds. Top speed is restricted to 250 kilometers an hour, but getting there on the India spec car can be a pain. One common complaint that we've had with a lot of new BMWs is the steering, but here they have absolutely nailed it. In fact, irrespective of where the marketing, the product planning or the design direction has headed for BMW in the past, all the 3 Series models have always safeguarded the enthusiastic driving dynamics that are synonymous with this bloodline. The new 3 Series does that too, and quite authoritatively. In today's world of SUVs, it is a pleasant reminder why we love sedans so much. But more importantly, this is also a reminder that for many enthusiasts around the world, the love for the ground-hugging dynamics of a sedan possibly stems from a 3 Series.
Well, this past week has been quite busy for a number of manufacturers, and BMW India has been one of them. They launched the 3 Series at a starting price of 41.40 lakh rupees, and you can also get the sporty M Sport variant for 47.90 lakh rupees. On that note, let's take our first break.